Prepare to grimace, chuckle, and scream in surprise as we bring you the weekly roundup of things we thought were easy but were actually difficult to perform, such as kids' strange flex, discovering that you're the bad person, and the most funny gossips about instructors. You won't believe your ears, taste senses, or the response of your boss. This is a must-see for everyone who enjoys a good chuckle and a dose of reality. What looks easy peasy lemon squeezy, but is actually difficult lemon difficult. Story 1. Finding a career you'll want to go to every day that won't crush your soul. Remember when you were young and teachers told you that you could be whatever you wanted to be? Yeah, not so realistic when you want to pay bills and maybe have a little beer money too. I didn't go to college and struggle with the thought of not being able to have a lateral career move without a degree. But then I see my friends absolutely floundering with their student loan payments and think maybe I don't have it so bad after all. All the feels for this. I only wish I hadn't bought into the college is the only way to go mentality. By 21, my life goal was to not be miserable, and everyone assumed I was depressed as all hell. But this is what I meant, is finding some sort of career where I didn't want to blow my head off just having to show up to work every day. One of the things I sincerely wish I had discovered earlier was that college doesn't guarantee that path. Took me 4 tries for a proper degree and another try at a tech school to discover that what makes me happy is farming. Like literally, I was gifted a dozen chickens and was like, oh, this. The simple life. Digging in the dirt and raising animals. And it's hard, and so far I still struggle with the beer money, but I'm happy, and I love my dang birds so much. Just wish I would have found this before I took out $10,000 in student loans, which I know is a small amount by comparison, but still hangs over my head. I went to college, grad school, got a PhD, and worked in a senior role at a highly coveted company. I still don't feel happy. The one thing I've learned after all these years is that happiness is not defined by title or company affiliation or number of letters after your name. My resume won't be on my tombstone. But in many ways, I'm stuck because the responsibilities I have now and all the people in my family and my profession I'm accountable to. I feel like I'll always be in the pursuit of happiness, rather than enjoying the moment I'm living in. Story 2. Selling panties online. I've seen a couple posts about how someone could exploit desperate dudes on Craigslist by buying women's panties, spritzing them with perfume, and then selling them online. Where it's so easy. Nowadays, buyers want to see photos of a real woman in the exact pair they'll be buying, or proof in the form of being Panty Trust certified. They'll want extras or special requests for their order, plenty of fetishes to go around, and the vast majority of them will drop off the face of the earth when it comes time to actually pay. You'll have to sift through hundreds of responses to your ad, knowing most of them will be time wasters just trying to get a little dirty talk or some photos. My advice? Don't bother. Leave it to the cam girls who make some side cash off selling their panties, because there's always going to be someone willing to go a step further than you, and they will be the one to make the sale. Story 3. I use a wheelchair, and people usually don't believe me when I say that getting around can be difficult, because many of them think that pushing a wheelchair is easy. They literally tell me this. The thing is, when you use a wheelchair all day and it's basically your only means of transportation, it looks more natural. This becomes a problem when I point out accessibility problems. They often don't believe me because they see how I can navigate and assume that it's easy, just because I make it look easy. And your arms gotta be ripped by now. My arms went from flab to fab in the first 2 months I had to use my wheelchair. On the downside, my legs did the opposite. Doctors hate him for this one weird trick. Get absolutely shredded following this crash course. I suspect this concept also applies to new parents to a certain degree. People talk about dad bods or mom bods for the general figure, but also picking up a blob of dead weight flesh and bones a gazillion times a day, hauling all the car seats and strollers and whatnot, that's going to give a natural strength you wouldn't otherwise get just sitting around on your butt working in an office all day. Story 4. Maintaining friendships from high school or college after you graduate. People get so busy with work and starting their own families that friendships get put on the back burner. You stop talking to someone for a few months, then it suddenly hits you that you're no longer friends with the person. Reach back out though, everyone understands, and I've rekindled and kept in touch intermittently with so many amazing people. Yes, we're not best friends who talk every day, but if stuff went down, I could give them a call, and vice versa. And when we do get together, it's a great time. My best friend from elementary school reached out after 20 years of going our own way. It's remarkable how much we both still have in common. Story 5. Dancing. I wouldn't say it looks easy, but when I see people do it, they're so good at it, and it flows so well, it looks easy. But dang, I just cannot get my body to do anything more than a bop, and maybe some stupid arm moves. I'm 25 and dance like a 50-year-old at a reunion. Dancers are so delicate and make it look so easy. It's honestly amazing. It's just hilarious when I try to do literally anything and fail horribly. All smoke and mirrors, friends. As a dance teacher, I can tell you confidently that it feels absolutely silly until you just start to sell it. 90% confidence, 10% squats. Having fun is step 1. Fake it till you make it. And when all else fails, just stick your tongue out, point your thumbs over your shoulders, and do little kicks. That's a surefire way to get everyone else out on the dance floor with you. Story 6. Folding fitted sheets. I've watched instructional videos that make it look so easy, but I always just end up with a crumpled up mess. And that's how it gets put away. The real trick is to only own one sheet. So as soon as it comes out of the wash, you immediately put it back on the bed and never need to even attempt folding it. I have a modified version of this, where I change the sheets, let the dirty ones sit on my floor for a week, where my dog will sleep, then wash them, repeat. The most common type of ghost is the one in a white sheet with waving arms. These are the spirits of people who died while trying to fold a fitted sheet. Story 7. Writing a post or comment on the internet that gets recognition. Nah, it's like carpet bombing. Throw a lot out there, some of them hit. My comment history is a zillion one-point comments and the occasional 7,000 upvote hit. And frankly, it's a lot less about my own cleverness and more about being positioned in a popular thread. Look up my top comment of all time to see what I mean. It was a quick smart butt add-on to something else someone said, but it was in a great thread full of funny stuff. Well thought out comment that makes a meaningful contribution to the conversation, 2 points. Stupid comment that you took 2 seconds to write, 2,000 points and 3 awards. Story 8. Making lemonade. Sure, squeezing one lemon is easy peasy, but do you know how much juice that makes? Not a lot. Fill in the rest with sugar. It's the American way. Or just use Country Time lemonade. There's nothing close to a lemon in it. Those captcha things on Google. I can honestly never read them, and the website always thinks I'm a robot. Maybe you are a robot. I sweat when I have to select photos with street signs, and one overlaps just barely into another square. I consistently fail them. There are no wrong answers to these tests. You're actually helping Google to learn how to identify cars, signs, faces, whatever. You're part of Google's matrix, helping it learn. Story 9. Getting away with red rum. Actually, if you go to a large city and end someone's life you have no connection to, the odds are you will get away scot-free. For example, the homicide arrest rate in Baltimore and Chicago are about 20%, meaning you have an 80% chance of not getting arrested. There are probably dozens of serial killers who have passed away, and we had no idea they were even doing their thing. It seems like the smarter ones get caught because they want to. Nationwide, the catch rate for red rums is only about 50-50. It's way easier if you end someone's life you are not close to. That's why when you want someone gone, you red rum swap. Story 10. Programming. It's like Lego sets. Anyone can follow the instructions and make the Millennium Falcon, but it's a whole different ballgame when you're given a pile of assorted blocks and someone says, "Okay, now, recreate the Taj Mahal." But the client wants it to look like Big Ben. It also needs to be able to interlock with the Sphinx, the Great Wall, the Eiffel Tower, and the Maozhang Temple to create a super monument. Yes, I know the Maozhang Temple hasn't been designed yet, just make some good guesses. We can add parts to it once we know what we need. Rainbow Road on Mario Kart. I still don't think I've ever come first. Ugh. Story 11. Actually doing things. In theory, it's simple. Just do the thing. In reality, I procrastinate until I hate myself. Self-discipline is the single hardest skill to master in this world that makes it so easy to just not. The 4 laundry baskets full of clean clothes sitting in my bedroom would agree with you. Wait, your laundry is clean? Mine still hasn't been washed, and I'm still cycling through the stuff I haven't worn since high school. My clothes are clean, but always in the dryer. My dryer is my closet. When you're too lazy to confess your sexuality, you come out of the dryer instead. Parents, what is the best weird flex, but okay, moment you've seen from your child? Story 1. Had an Amber Alert hit my phone one night while my then 6-year-old was playing a game on it. She asks what that was, and I explained it's a message that gets sent out if a kid is getting kidnapped. She looks at it again and sees it's for a town over 2 hours from where we live. She then asks me why they sent it if it's so far away. I said because they want everyone to look and find the kid. Wouldn't you want everyone to look if you got kidnapped? They want to find the kid so they don't have their lives ended. She leans over close to my ear and whispers, "My life is very difficult to end." I had to mute the Amber Alerts on my phone. My son saw one when he was 5 years old and asked me about it, so I explained it. Every hour or two, for almost a week afterward, he'd ask me, "Did they find the kid yet? Mom, were you even looking at license plates when you were driving? You have to pay attention in case you see her." When her body was found, my poor kid was devastated. He still writes down the license number whenever he sees an Amber Alert on one of those LED road signs and sets it on the dash where I can see it. Sounds like he would make a great detective. Story 2. When my son was small, he kept a notebook full of tips. Tips like never wear a cowboy suit in Ireland, never stay at a hotel in the woods. When your parents ask you to do chores, pretend to be asleep and they'll forget. Always be good friends with a cousin. He has 38 first cousins, so no problem there. Always try really, hard. If you invent something, don't test it out with a live person. Don't pronounce mom like mom. Say mum. It'll be cooler. Be scared of the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Make your day better with seafood. Never say you're doing nothing to a parent. Never invite someone sick to your party. Don't use a pencil, on thick and fancy paper. Never fight in a one. Always get the best, biggest Beck. If you have a bad taste in your mouth at the beach, you may need mouthwash. Never eat nuts you find in your yard. There's 325 of these tips, and they're all awesome. Story 3. Just a couple days ago, my 2-year-old son woke up, so I went to change him. I pulled his jammy pants off, then went to undo the diaper, and the whole time he has this look on his face like he's waiting for something. I pull the diaper off in front of him, and bored, he's got a boner. He even smiled big and threw his arms up at the moment of reveal, like, ta-da! When I wasn't appropriately amazed and merely continued with changing him, he pointed at it and said, loudly and forcefully, "That's mine." Yes, my dear, that is your penis. Congratulations. I'm definitely going to try this move tonight. My wife will be thrilled. Mine did that to me, except he said, "Big wee wee." Story 4. My toddler just threw her dinner on the floor, started clapping, yelled, "Hooray!" her little lungs could possibly allow, then looked right at me, holding up her palm for a high five. Now that's a weird flex right there. This was just an example from tonight. She doesn't know the difference between right and wrong yet, or so she makes us believe, so everything is high five worthy in her worldview. Climbs up on the couch, high five. Pulls the cat's tail, high five. Give the dogs treats, high five. Tips over the pet water bowl, high five. Solve one of those kitty puzzles, high five. Cries indiscriminately over nothing, high five. Now that I think of it, high fives can be a great behavioral tool. Story 5. When my son was potty training, I started letting him do the cleanup, then I'd have to finish. After a bit of this, he figured he was pretty well good to go on his own, and he was very big boy about it. So for the next couple of weeks, he'd do his thing, which always included stripping naked, then come running out to wherever I was, bend over with his cheeks spread, and shout, "Hey Mom, I wiped my butt all by myself, look it." Mine can't do this, so she comes out and bends over with her poop-covered butt in the air, ready for me to wipe. Story 6. When my son was 5, a waitress at Applebee's asked him how old he was, to which he exclaimed, "I'm 5 and I pooped today." I think everyone within 4 tables of us was very impressed. My dad took my daughter out to eat once when she was 2, and the server asked if she was ready for ice cream, and she said, "No, I have poop coming." He just said, "Well, more room for ice cream then," which I think was pretty dope for someone being paid basically nothing to work at Applebee's. He took the poop ball and rolled with it, like a minimum wage dung beetle. Story 7. Not my kid, but a friend of mine was trying to teach his daughter to pick up her toys when she was younger. When she didn't do it one time, he told her he was going to throw away everything that was still on the floor. She picked them up and put them in the trash can for him. My kid did that. It's a dang power move. I mean, what do you even do in this situation? Throw them away. Okay, then what about the toys? I'm all about this method of parenting. Show them that there are natural consequences to their actions. If they treat their toys like junk strewn about on the ground, then show them that junk goes in the trash. If they refuse to eat their dinner, they don't get dessert, and if they get hungry later, then their dinner is still wrapped up in the fridge for them. Of course, this method only works for things like this if your kid doesn't call your bluff, because I don't know any parent that actually wants to throw away toys and be forced to buy new ones when there's nothing left to occupy their kid anymore. Story 9. So my 7-year-old has always been eccentric. I started keeping a log of some things she says in passing on my phone when she was 3, and there are some good ones I feel apply to this thread. Something smells like chocolate, and it's coming from the inside of my mouth. Yeah, well, I can read blank spaces. Chickens have chicken in their bodies. Most of these are responses to her older sister bragging about something she did to excel in school. Story 10. My son, who was 4 or 5 at the time, walked into the kitchen and said to my wife, "Give me my usual, but put it in a real glass." She's like, "What, your milk?" It was then we realized we had to rein in the iPad and curse of Monkey Island. 2% on the rocks, half a twist, and put some English on it. Story 11. My son, 4 at the time, was, I guess, trying to impress the 6-year-old neighbor girl. He leaned casually on his arm and said, "I have lots of accidents, pee and poop accidents. I hope for his sake his pickup lines improve. So, I heard you're into bad boys." Because I'm really bad at everything. Winks with both eyes at once. My brother tried to impress the girls next door by telling them he had head lice. Story 12. I remember being about 6 or 8 and bragging to multiple strangers about how my older, red-headed, and white sister, for context, I was a little brown-haired, brown-eyed, brown-skinned child, was my full-blooded sister, but had a different last name because I thought it was a cool fun fact about my family. Turns out she was a half-sibling, and nobody told me until I was older. Well, it is genetically possible, if that makes you feel better. Story 13. I'm a tutor, and a while back I had a 10-year-old student who said he had just learned the cool kid's way to write a 7. Good for you, little dude. Wait, what's the cool kid's way to write a 7? Edit. So apparently the cool kid's way to write a 7 is with a crossbar, like this. 7. But I've only ever seen it written that way by Europeans. Story 14. I ran around telling everyone I was the most beautiful girl in the world. I even told my mom's friend that Shirley Temple was almost as cute as me. Used up all my confidence at 3. My daughter, age 2, regularly comes up to me and puts the back of her head in my face. "See my hair?" "Yes, honey, I do. It's beautiful." Runs off. Story 15. "Katie, you have to eat 3 more green beans before you're excused." "No, no more." 3 more. "I'm going to eat 4 more." "Oh no, you got me good." My son is good with this. "Okay, mate, 5 minutes till you have to hop out of the bath." "No, 3 minutes." "Righto." Story 16. My 10-month-old son hates being changed. Recently, he figured out that if he grabs his balls in a death grip with one of his hands, it makes it impossible to get the diaper on him. I die a little inside every time he does this. If you haven't already tried it, warming up the wipes will sometimes stop diaper changing hatred. Story 17. When my daughter was, I think, 8, we were in the pool throwing a beach ball around. I tossed it to her. She catches it, then says to me, "Is that all you've got, old man?" That's when you freaking spike it as hard as you can at her little face. Are you freaking sorry? Story 18. My son was in the tub and asked exactly how old he was. About 4 years, 10 months, and 4 days. After a few moments of deep thought, I heard him say quietly and reverently to himself, "And I haven't been bit by a single wild animal." Oh man, still kills me. Story 19. When my sister was younger, she told her teacher that my dad was a clown. He actually owns an auto body shop, but I guess she thought he was pretty funny. Apparently, the parent-teacher conference was hilarious. Your daughter tells us you're a clown. What an interesting career. What made you realize there was something off about your friend's significant other? Story 1. Me and my cousin grew up together like brothers. I immediately knew his new girlfriend didn't like me from the looks she would give me or how blunt she was when I tried to engage her in conversation. A few months down the line, I tried to arrange a meal with my cousin and asked him to bring his girlfriend along so we could break the ice. Everything was arranged. I showed up at the restaurant and they didn't. I was stood up. They're now married and have 2 kids. I wasn't invited to his stag night or his wedding. I was, and still am, gutted. I met my wife and invited him to my stag do. He was all paid up, and I couldn't wait to see him again. It was the thing I was looking forward to the most. He didn't show. Again, gutted. He and his wife showed up to my wedding and acted as if there was no problem. It was quite strange, but I didn't care, as it was great to just spend time with the man I had considered my brother. We kind of kept in contact via text, but never met up, even though I tried to arrange it a few times. Then my son was born. I was desperate for them to meet each other, and bent over backwards to meet up. I agreed to meet at a play area so his daughters could tag along and go play, and he got to meet my son, who is named after his brother who passed away. I sat there for an hour before he messaged me to say he wasn't coming. As a final attempt to salvage some kind of relationship, I invited his family to my son's christening. I got a message an hour after it, and I had already finished, and he said that he wasn't going to make it, as his wife had arranged to do something. That was 4 years ago, and I haven't heard, seen, or spoken to him since. Still makes me sad, but as long as he's happy, then that's all that matters. This is actually really heartbreaking. I feel for you, man. You deserved better, but I'm glad it seems you're trying to keep a positive view of it. Story 2. She was super friendly, but I'd catch her looking at me out of the corner of my eye with not a nasty expression exactly, but not a friendly one either. Sort of wary. I'm also a girl. She'd also casually say odd little details when talking about her life that made it seem like she had a pretty skewed idea of relationships and gender roles. She went to an all-girls boarding school, and even though she was 24, she was the first of all of her friends to ever have a boyfriend. Like saying, "It's ridiculous to expect a woman to change a light bulb on her own," or making out that some things were a big deal in relationships when they're really not, as if she'd got all her knowledge from rom-coms. Just really tiny things that wouldn't be significant on their own. But added all together, it really set me on edge. She ended up going full-on psycho and not letting him see any of his friends or do any of the things he enjoyed for 2 whole years because she was basically jealous of every single other woman in the world, even his male friends' girlfriends. It took his brother to come round and have a good long chat for him to realize she was a control freak who was ruining his life. It was a timely escape, too, since she was starting to talk about babies. That's actually kind of sad. Sounds like she grew up super sheltered, so the only romantic advice she ever got was from movies and television. Not surprising she had a freaked up view of relationships and what is normal. Story 3. When my best friend and his significant other started in an LDR, I didn't think much of it. LDR, by the way, is long distance relationship. But when she would repeatedly make fun of him to her friends on Twitter, I brought it up. She repeatedly cheated on him and acted like they weren't serious at all. Told my friend again because he was head over heels. They finally broke up because of a fight over something unrelated to the things I brought up to my friend. Then they got back together, and my friend used the stuff I told him to make a stipulation that if she wants anything to do with him, she has to be serious. For whatever reason, she sticks with it. She started pulling him away from me gradually. Quick flashback, when his ex gave birth to his 2 sons, I dropped everything, was late to work because of one of them, and spent as much time as I could with them. When I had my daughter, I invited my best friend not once, not twice, but 3 times to meet her. He couldn't be bothered to come to the hospital, not because of work, but because he needed to be on the phone with his girlfriend. I burned that bridge so quickly. Now they're engaged with a kid of their own. He moved to Florida for her and is an alcoholic now. Good riddance to both of them. Sounds like he burned that bridge. Story 4. Was friends with this guy for a year while deployed overseas in the UK. His wife was always just plain mean to him in front of others. Like on everything. That is, calling him stupid, talking about their failing intimate life in front of him to friends, telling a real man would earn more money for the family. Let alone, she was also calling her 2-year stint in the UK her vacation from work. She also refused to stop hanging out with his male friends, who she always would stay with even overnight. After one nasty comment, she said to him in front of our boss at a retirement dinner, I said in front of him, "Dude, your wife is a witch." A week later, while he was at work and thinks she's in the States visiting her mother, he comes home to an empty home. Everything was gone, from the couch, bed, even his laptop and video games. He calls the cops, thinking he's been robbed. Turns out his future ex-wife came back with her family and movers, cleaned out the home, his savings accounts, everything, without a word. He lost his home and was forced to move into barracks. I just said to him, I'm sorry, dude, but your wife is still a witch. Story 5. When he started trying to pick fights with me in order to separate me from my cousin, we were in our mid-teens. He looked 17 or 18, very clean-cut and geeky in a boy band sort of way. You know, the sensitive one with the glasses. He was well-mannered, respectful to our moms, but he seemed predatory to me. I didn't have the best people around me growing up, so I learned to recognize potential threats early, and this guy set off all my danger bells. Just small things like watching too closely to see how people reacted to him and the way his smile never reached his eyes. I wasn't rude, but I didn't fawn over him either. Once he realized that I wasn't charmed by him, he started avoiding me, telling her he didn't feel comfortable around me and she'd have to see him alone. He tried bullying me anytime he saw me, while still bragging to me that he was her protector and her white knight. Found out a few months later that he was actually in his mid-20s and had a record for stalking and assaulting underage girls. Too bad we didn't know this before he gave her herpes. Good Lord. Story 6. My friend randomly made an Instagram and only followed his girlfriend, girlfriend's mother, sister, and some of her friends. Naturally, I was confused why he didn't follow his best buddy, me, so I followed him and he followed back. I asked him if he saw a picture I uploaded, and he said, "Oh yeah, I didn't make that. My girlfriend was looking at my new phone, and it had Instagram pre-downloaded, and accidentally clicked it, and it automatically made an account for me." I replied, "Oh, so it automatically knew to make an account with your name, a username with your name, a profile picture of you and her, have one post of you and her, make a cheesy bio about your girlfriend, and follow her family and best friends? Oh, and it followed me back weeks later, so it must be acting on its own, well after she accidentally pushed it once." Only thing he could say is that the internet is crazy, and you never know what type of AI technology they have out there these days. No, mate, your girlfriend is freaking crazy. Either she's given him some kind of unnatural, animalistic, great, intimate time, or his self-awareness is on a cracked-out goldfish level. Story 7. Oh, where to start? The double date we went on where he corrected her on the difference between UFC and MMA, and she turned into the corner of the booth and didn't talk to anyone the rest of the night. How he wasn't allowed to hang out with me either because I was dating someone and they might have hot friends, or I was single and needed a wingman. He was 25 while she, my friend, was 15. Moved and she got mad at me. I don't remember why, I just didn't rub me the right way before we were done. The final straw for me, I decided she was an abusive shrew long before this, was when we were working for his parents' band on a riverboat concert. She got mad that we were hanging out, literally just talking on a small boat. She left the ring on the table, and I left the boat the second it docked. Unfortunately, they made up after this and have been living together for the last year, hoping it ends soon. Story 8. when he installed some kind of app on my best friend's computer so that he could control the mouse with his phone. I think this was 2 months after I met him, 6 months into their relationship. I thought that was really funky, but it's only a joke. Why do you think it's weird? About a year later, he asked her to sign into Facebook to see if Facebook was working for her. Later that day, she came over worried and asked me if he could have saved her password even if she told Chrome to not save it. We kind of bounced ideas around that. No, I don't think so. I mean, unless he put a keylogger on his computer. But that would be messed up. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. Notable favorite, after breaking up, he also tried to pose as me on Kik so he could talk to her. He used a username that was like hers, so it was easily mistaken. The whole relationship was a crappy mess. This is such a hypocritical thing to do. If you're worried that your partner is keeping secrets from you, which is totally fine for innocuous things anyway, but you're obsessing over it to the point that you breach their trust and violate their privacy, rather than talk to them directly about your concerns, that's pretty childish. But to do it like this, by sneaking around and snooping on their stuff, now you're keeping secrets from them, in the sense that you're doing things behind their back that you know they wouldn't approve of. So you've now become the untrustworthy one in the relationship, which probably, in most cases, there was nothing suspicious going on in the first place. What's your best, oh, I'm actually the bad guy here moment? Story 1. It wasn't me, but it was amazing to see. I was at a Starbucks, sitting outside along with a number of other people. A gym rat-looking guy starts drawing attention to himself and pointing at people, saying, "Is that white Chevy over there your car?" After a couple of these, a guy sitting near me says, "Yeah, that is my car." Gym rat, righteously, "You are a royal jerk for parking in a handicapped spot. How can you be so selfish when someone who needs that spot might show up at any time? For all you know, he already drove through the parking lot, couldn't find a space, so he headed back home empty-handed. Blah, blah, blah." Car owner, "Oh, sorry, I'm handicapped, but I forgot to hang the tag when I left the car." Gym rat, "Oh, really?" At this point, the car owner, who had been sitting down and showed no signs of handicap, stood up. The guy is bent in half, like his spine is fused in a 90-degree angle. He looked perfectly normal sitting down. Okay, I'll go to the car and hang the tag." Gym rat, upon seeing him stand, "Sorry, you don't have to do that." The car owner slowly and uncomfortably walks the 40 feet to his car, opens the door, fumbles to hang the tag, then ambles his way back to his seat, rigidly bent the entire time. As uncomfortable as the handicapped guy was doing that, he probably secretly enjoyed how much of a dong it made the other guy look. If it were me, I'd probably stumble a little for a theatrical effect. When I was in grade school, I had a serious problem keeping my mouth shut. Basically, if a thought popped into my head, I was freaking saying it. Teachers didn't exactly appreciate the constant blurting out, but when I really crossed the line was when I made fun of a perfectly sweet girl just because her mom smoked. Screw you, me. I was already a problem child, and while I wasn't technically expelled, I did have to leave and go to a different school. So, yeah, basically expelled, but off the record. What's worse is that it took around 2 years of sulking for me to finally realize that I had it coming. Every bit of it. God, I can't believe how much of a craphead I was. Story 2. Oh man, I still feel pretty bad whenever I think about this. So about a year ago, I was on a long international plane flight. I always book the aisle seat because I have a GI disorder. That means I sometimes have to get to the bathroom with very little notice, so being trapped in a middle or window seat is suboptimal. I get all seated for my flight, which is the second leg of probably 12 plus hours worth of travel, and I'm so exhausted, I start to nod off before boarding is even finished. I'm awakened by a man politely asking if he can have my seat. Groggily, I explain that, no, sorry, I set it up this way because of an illness I have, and I get up so he can have the window seat. It was a small flight, so no middle seat, at least. The nerve of some people, right? If you wanted the aisle seat, why didn't you just choose it beforehand, random dude? The world doesn't revolve around you. Well, about 3 hours into the flight, I wake up again, feeling slightly more human, and end up in conversation with my roommate. And within about 5 minutes, I discovered that no, he wasn't asking to switch seats. He was telling me that I was in his seat. Apparently, the airline had switched who was seated where so that he could be closer to his wife and daughter, who were sitting across the aisle. I hadn't looked at my electronic boarding pass since going through security, so I didn't notice the change. I apologized profusely and offered to switch immediately, but the poor guy just said it was okay and declined. Ugh. I think the airline is the bad guy here, switching your seat without properly and clearly notifying you. Story 3. Was the assistant manager of a fast food place in college. A bunch of punk rocker looking guys my age came in to eat, around the same time as some soccer moms with little kids. One of the punk rock kids was pretty intimidating, easily a foot taller than me and built like an athlete. They were all perfectly nice when they ordered their food, but once they got their cups to fill up their drinks, the big guy started screaming and cursing at the top of his lungs, "Mother freaking pig sucker son of a witch!" The moms all looked horrified. I'm ordinarily quite averse to conflict, so I was quite proud of myself when I marched around the corner and got right up into this big dude's face. I looked him straight in the eye and told him that if he had a problem acting like a normal human being, he needed to get out of my restaurant. He looked back at me and almost started crying. He whispered, "I'm sorry," and turned and walked away. He looked absolutely destroyed, and his friends followed him trying to console him. Either that dude legitimately had Tourette's, or the whole group of them was pulling a prank and were the absolute best actors I've ever seen. Story 4. In middle school, I pulled some really creepy crap on a guy I liked, as in an insane amount of physical stalking. I memorized his schedule only through following him everywhere, and I always appeared in the same places he was. Took one of his belongings that he forgot somewhere, and took an assignment of his that was posted on a class corkboard because I just wanted his stuff. At the time, it didn't even occur to me that what I was doing was freaked up. All I thought about was, how could I be around this person without having to interact with him? It's been over a decade since then. If I did any of the crap I did as an adult, I would have been arrested with at least a few restraining orders. My friends told me it was messed up, but I refused to listen. I probably did some serious permanent mental damage to the poor kid. I hope he's managed to recover, and I hope he never has to worry about anything like this again. He deserves the relief. I'm pretty sure you think about it more than he does. I doubt you really did any long-term mental damage to the guy. That's my useless random internet person guarantee. Story 5. I used to work security at a college bar, and we would typically ask people to leave who were too intoxicated. One night, I was posted up in the DJ booth because it was our normal shoulder-to-shoulder level of busy, and I watched this guy start stumbling and drinking his beer in a really weird way. I make my way over to him and tell him he has to leave because he's too drunk. He tries to tell me something, but I can't understand what he said because the music is so loud and he was slurring his words. We get outside and he tells me that he has cerebral palsy, which was pretty obvious after the fact. He was cool about it, and I let him back in, but I don't think I've ever felt like a bigger dong than that night. I have a buddy who has muscular dystrophy. Once, while in the liquor store, he had a bout of paralysis and collapsed. The reaction from everyone there was along the lines of, "Oh, great, another drunk," until he told them he had muscular dystrophy and physically can't get up. He said it was kind of funny watching them all scramble to help him after that. Story 6. I lived with a bunch of my friends during senior year of college. We were on an alcohol-fueled warpath that year, trying to enjoy every minute of it. One night, one of my roommates decided he wasn't going to come out to the bar with us because it was a Tuesday, and obviously he had class the next morning. We ragged on him for being a nerd and left. We came home around 2 a.m., and I thought it would be hilarious to bang on his door and get him to play Mario Kart with us. He told us if I didn't stop, he would punch me in the face. Yeah, right, dude. So I kept banging, and true to his word, he opened the door and socked me in the face. It was an absolute moment of clarity for me, as his first connected with my cheek that maybe I was the butthole. I apologized the next morning. He tried to apologize for hitting me, and I wouldn't hear it, because it was my fault. I made my friend punch me. Most in the wrong I've ever been. Story 7. In high school, there was a kid who I unwittingly bullied. I actually thought he was a cool dude, and my friend group and I roughly housed a lot. Headlocks, finger circle game, dead legs, etc. I was just doing what I did with everyone I get along with. One day I came up behind him and did that thing where you kick someone's back leg in their front leg while they're walking and they trip on their feet. He turned around with fear and anger in his eyes and yelled, "Why do you have to be such a dong to me all the time?" My heart sank to my feet. I didn't realize that what I saw as friendly bonding play, he found really intimidating. We talked it out, and I spent the rest of my high school days being really nice to him. The weirdest part is that he was a pretty popular kid. Not small by any means, and on a couple different sports teams. Goes to show anybody can feel bullied. Story 8. It was the moment I realized that I was, in fact, responsible for everything I did while mentally unstable. I spent years alienating everyone I knew by demanding that they forgive my crappy behavior because it wasn't me, it was my bipolar disorder. Everyone else was the bad guy because they just didn't understand my illness. I was the victim. One day it just kind of clicked. No matter what the cause, I was the one who was hurting the people around me. It wasn't on them to understand and forgive my endless parade of insanity. It was on me to get help and stop being so toxic to everyone around me. It was that epiphany that really helped me turn the corner. While I'd sought help before, it was always with the mindset that I had no responsibility for, and therefore no control over, my illness. Teachers reveal after-hour secrets they're not allowed to tell students. Story 1. My mom teaches middle school math. It's not her fault, but she is absolutely horrible at math. She's a special education teacher and never wanted to teach math. Unfortunately, the math department was short a teacher, so she picked up a class. Fortunately, they put a large group of the special education kids in the class. I think she would be in trouble if they knew that I have had to help her with the math on multiple occasions. But on the plus side, since she doesn't immediately understand it, she can see where her students would mess up. She can sympathize why they don't understand things a lot better than most people. Edit, a lot of people misunderstood me. My mother is not stupid, and I would prefer if people would stop commenting that she is. She is not good at math, but she is a great teacher. I come from a family of teachers. We are very good at getting people to understand things. My life goal is to eventually become a college professor. Having a teacher who is not good at math in school is better for a class of students who aren't good at math. If the teacher now understands math, he or she can explain better to the students than a teacher who is naturally good at math. But this kind of teacher is horrible for kids who are naturally good at math. The teacher won't understand how the kids make leaps or shortcuts and will be annoyed at them for not showing their work. A teacher not immediately understanding a subject does not mean they're a bad teacher, but a teacher for students who don't immediately understand things. I'm good at math and suck at teaching because I can use all these shortcuts that make sense to me, but not everyone else. So I can see why your mom's a good teacher. Oh God, yes. My husband is a math-minded person, but our daughter is not. She's in pre-algebra this year, and he keeps trying to get her to use all kinds of shortcuts. I could have kissed her teacher when, at conferences, he very kindly told my husband that our daughter needs to learn all the steps and why we use them before she learns the shortcuts. Since October, there haven't been any more tears over math homework. Story 2. Kinda relevant story. I was having a really rough semester dealing with depression, a full-time job, and a boatload of units at a community college since I couldn't afford tuition at my university. Not unique problems by any means, I know, and went to my middle-aged Calc 3 professor to try and work something out about my rapidly dropping grade. I told him times were rough and how sorry I was that I had to pick up shifts in lieu of attending his class so that I could make rent. He looked at me and said he understood, then started tearing up and saying he had to pick up a part-time job at Applebee's to make his own ends meet, and how embarrassed he was that he had to wait on a few of his students during the semester. He talked about how when students would recognize him, they would tease him about it during their meal, asking why he couldn't get an engineering job or something, since he was such a math whiz. As I was leaving, he told me to please not tell anyone. Broke my heart to see him cry, and made me reevaluate my own problems. Aw, poor guy. I don't know why people are so mean sometimes. It's a sad state of the world where a guy who's educating people has to take a side job to stay afloat. Story 3. Not me, but my MS office teacher was a pretty gruff guy, always had a raspy throat, coughed, etc. My dad worked at the local newspaper as the head editor, so he knew everything that went on in our tiny Idaho county. Turns out my teacher had a record of 5 DUIs, some of which were pretty bad. Once he hit a Stone Country Club sign, lost a wheel, drove 3 miles home, dragging someone's mailbox. A cop followed his antifreeze trail and knocked on the door. My teacher's son answered, told the cop to wait there, and left. But the cop came in anyway, so he was cleared of all charges. The funniest part of the whole story, he was the school's driver's ed teacher. Today I learned high schools now have Microsoft Office teachers. You have to take it twice actually, once in middle school and once in high school. It basically consists of entering numbers into Excel for 8 weeks straight, then making and correcting poopy PowerPoint and Word documents. Source, I'm 16. Friend of mine is a DJ for all the main clubs in the area. I'm sure most of his students are too wasted to even realize he's playing the music they drink to. Story 4. Her favorite story is of the teacher who made an entire presentation about Napoleon ice cream and how it's 3 flavors because Napoleon himself could never choose, followed by a lesson entirely consisting of made-up BS about Napoleon. I guess she never read that it's actually Neapolitan ice cream. There are many similar stories. This is the highest-rated school district in the state, too. I evaluate teachers professionally. I've seen some amusing things, like a teacher selecting Samurai of Ancient China as the best essay from her class. Good Lord, that is sad. Some of the most common things my mom witnesses are emails and handwritten notes with major spelling and grammatical errors, words corrected on spelling tests to the wrong spelling, and silly misinformation related to history and science, kind of like Samurai in China. She walks in on completely out-of-control classrooms on a weekly basis to a teacher sitting at their desk like nothing is going on. Perhaps there's a correlation between this story and the second story. You think if maybe teachers were paid better, then they would actually be bothered to put in the massive amount of effort that's required to handle a classroom full of kids? Or perhaps if schools had better budgets, they could afford to hire more competent teachers. At the end of the day, I think you get what you pay for. It seems a lot of young teachers who are passionate about the job at first are high-quality educators, but as the years go on and they don't get treated fairly for the effort that they do put in, they learn to not bother, and you're left with mediocrity. Story 5. I let my students off the hook, all the time. I have no interest in busting a kid for swearing, etc., as long as they weren't being disrespectful to me in the first place. Far too many teachers are just there to create obedient little automatons, much like they are themselves. Now, keep in mind, if I see a kid doing something really dongish, even if it's small, I'll go out of my way to set them straight. I'm there to create genuine, empathetic, and independent individuals, and I think this means the ability to make some mistakes along the way. I write down the stuff kids say because it's often hilarious, and I'd like to write a book on it one day. The other day, for instance, I'm in a grade 1 class, and the student says to me, "You look exactly like the guy that sleeps with my mom." Story 6. I don't care when they get all ticky-offy and throw tantrums. They're learning and growing, and one day they will understand. Right now, they need to yell and do whatever to establish their identity. But no matter what, I won't hate them, and will always be there to help them. They can't know about this now because they don't understand why, and they need to make their mistakes. One day, though, I hope they understand, and what little I may or may not have taught them will carry on for the rest of their lives. That's not a secret, that just makes you a freaking fantastic teacher. Story 7. Native English teacher in a non-English speaking country here, teaching elementary age. I begin each class by saying, "Good morning, class," to which they respond, "Good morning, teacher." Sometimes, if I feel the energy level is low or the response is mediocre, I will say louder, "Good morning, class." This will usually elicit a "Good morning, teacher." What my students don't know is that sometimes I'll aim for them to repeat loudly so as to mask a wicked fart I need to let out. Has your timing ever been off? Teacher. Story 8. I would prefer they didn't know I cleaned houses for money on weekends, or that a couple weeks after school is out for the semester, some teachers go through the lost and found box before it goes to charity. Nothing real crazy. Honestly, teachers that I work with are too busy to have too many secrets, and the few nut job educators don't last long. I guess I would never want my students to know that some of their parents are buttholes, and because of their incompetent parenting, life will be harder. Story 9. I have a good friend who teaches high school. He feels the need to hide that he plays Dungeons & Dragons and other RPGs. It's a sad state of the world we live in. Had a teacher admit that he had a Steam account and played RPGs, everyone, me included, was begging for his account name. Had a teacher at my high school that played Xbox all the time. One of my friends was able to get her gamer tag and showed it to me. Her gamer score was in the 100,000s. Story 10. All the people I knew who were going to be teachers after college were drunken, drugged-up, liberal hormone monsters bent on debauchery. I'm not shocked by the idea that teachers only pretend to be conservative in front of their students. No, don't say that. My sister is in a master's degree program for education. No, ew. Your sister loves reverse cowgirl. Story 11. I'm not a teacher, but as a student, about 20 years ago, we did discover that one of my grade school gym coaches was on American Gladiators when some of us saw the episode one snow day. We worshipped her after that. It was Blaze, wasn't it? I had her as a sub about 3 months before I graduated. It couldn't have been Blaze. She was my high school PE teacher, and where I went to. Story 12. We had a female English teacher that was a bodybuilder. She became a corn star. No joke. Had a student teacher in high school who disappeared in the middle of her co-op because some poophead found her in a camgirl ad and posted copies of the ad around the school. She was such a sweet girl and a great teacher, but I don't think she stuck with it after that. Ah, man, high school is hell. Story 13. I've hooked up with some of their moms. I'm teaching in a small town where I also grew up. It happens. Still, I don't talk about it. Hey, Timmy, I screwed your mom. He should use that as punishment. Every time the student gets something wrong, he adds a detail of when he boned her. What's 2 plus 2? 3? And then, when I was about to finish, I grabbed her bloobies and said, "What can men get away with that women can't?" Story 1. The freedom to not care about certain things. Cleanliness, other people having a good time, with no social repercussions. There have been many things I couldn't do because, as a woman, I was supposed to know better and be the grown-up. The freedom to get to be the immature one sometimes. For example, in the past when my apartment has been a little messy and I have guests over, some people will make comments to me about how I could have cleaned up before they came over. FYI, these are not friends. These are usually older relatives, coworkers, acquaintances, etc. But my now husband, before we moved in and got married, had a pretty messy apartment, and no one ever judged him for it. Even now that we've lived together for a while, he'll try to reassure me that no one cares if our house is messy. This is because he doesn't realize that there are people who do, and I will be the person blamed for it. A similar thing happened with planning our wedding. It was assumed, mostly by relatives and older family friends, that the logistics, planning, and organization was all on me. If it was a success, congrats. This person is now a successful, grown-up adult woman. If anything is slightly off, and they will find something, then the entire blame would be completely on me because I should have known better. I tried explaining that we planned our wedding as partners and had equal say. We truly did. But these people didn't believe me. Story 2. So, my partner and I have literally the same master's degree, but when people talk about something in our field, they always want to know his opinion and don't even bother asking me. Not sure if this is a general thing though, just one of my pet peeves. Boyfriend and I were in culinary school. I graduated first, and he eventually couldn't graduate because of freaking English professor never putting in his final grades and him sucking at philosophy. People always refer to him as, "Hey, chef," and ask him for advice on cooking and other stuff. Personally, I never felt much like I earned the title of chef. Even hearing novice chef feels weird. But they always act like I chose a hobby while this is a career. I've even been told a woman can't use a wok, or that I can't wear my glasses in the kitchen, or that they were looking to hire a man. It's frustrating as hell trying to get work in Eastern Texas. My sister-in-law was a mechanic and had to move to Houston to get treated seriously. So, do women belong in the kitchen or not? Sexists need to make up their mind. I can only somewhat relate to this one, as people have also confused my qualifications for working in the kitchen. For the longest time, people thought I was the head chef on the SS Gourmet, when in reality, I only cleaned the bathrooms on the Gourmet. I was, however, the head chef on the SS Diarrhea, My specialty was canned peas, made in the old-fashioned way. Story 3. This is definitely a bad thing no matter who does it, and most men do not do this. People shouldn't get away with this, but they do. It's a thing where you date someone for a while, things are going well, you move in together, then bam, you turn around and say, "Honey, I expect you to do all my laundry, cooking, and cleaning from now on. After all, you are my wife now." This happened to a couple of my friends. I've only seen this seismic shift in power dynamics from the male partner towards his female partner, not the other way around. While they're living separately and dating, the guy is fine doing his own household chores. Then once he moves in with a girlfriend or wife, he expects her to take on all chores. Mama's boys are bad for this. They move out, grow up, clean up after themselves, but revert back to being a messy teenager. The girlfriends end up caving, cleaning up after them, and becoming their mother. When the relationship and intimate stuff goes south, the guy doesn't know why. When you have to pick up a guy's sweaty gitch off the floor after repeatedly asking him to, you don't want to have wild, passionate romance stuff on a regular basis. This is exactly where the age-old being married equals no intimacy thing comes from. It is exactly freaking this. You turned her role into mom, and she turned your role into child as a result. She doesn't want to sleep with a child. You played yourself. Story 4. Getting the snip. For men, they just walk into the doctor's office, lay down on a table, and within 10 minutes, they're done. Sterile and still firing, and often no questions about their decisions. For women, it's a huge battle, especially when you're younger, and often impossible. You'll be told that you're too young to do this, that your mind will change as you age. And if you somehow jump through all the hoops and the courts don't rule you down, it means thousands of dollars out of your pocket to go to hospital. Honestly, I don't even care about the cost. I just want a free choice to do what I want with my body. And before anyone bothers to chime in with a comment about how women have got so many contraceptive options to choose from and men don't, let me just point out that hormonal birth control can wreck a woman's body in so many ways. I ended up with osteoporosis because of it. So far, those brittle bones in my lumbar spine have been fractured 3 times, leaving me with constant pain, and considering myself lucky, I can still walk. For some reason, this was considered a better idea than just letting me get my tubes tied. Yes, there should be more contraceptive options for men, but that means men are going to have to learn to take the side effects too. Not sure if it's like this everywhere, but at least where I'm from, they are pretty stringent for men going in for vasectomies too. Especially if you're married and don't already have 2 or more kids, they often require your spouse to give consent before they'll even consider the procedure. If you're single, though, there are less hoops to jump through as a man who decides he doesn't want kids. Story 5. My older sister has a master's in HR. She has 18 years experience in the field and also handles payroll for the company she works for. The guys at her job expected her to make coffee and handle all incoming calls. She told them, "I'm not a secretary, nor am I a barista." They proceeded to ostracize her. It continues to this day, and she has no idea what to do. Someone in another reply mentioned that it's harder for women to be serious without someone thinking that they're being a witch. I flat out wish I could walk into her office and just Tasmanian devil their butt. Then again, I'm pretty stupid, and my answer is always to go Tasmanian devil on a situation. I was an office administrator in a place full of male engineers. Second day, they send over the senior guy to tell me the coffee pot is empty. I could tell what he was angling for, the new girl to become the coffee slave. I just shrugged and said, "Oh, thanks, but I don't drink coffee," and played dumb when he tried to explain that's not what he meant until he felt like a butthole. Story 6. Walking home alone at night, I can't imagine being completely terrified every time I needed to take even just a short walk home. I do this frequently, and I'll not lie, I get harassed. But screw it, I'm going to the movies alone now, because I'm not going to let these romantically frustrated buttholes dictate where I do or do not go. Good on you. For real though, be safe. As much as it is your right, and you should have every reason to feel safe, doesn't make it true. My general philosophy on this is, the more you modify your behavior to accommodate these people, the more they win and feel validated. I have no illusion that I'm safe. Things have gotten physical to various degrees on several occasions, but I refuse to live my life in fear. I try to make calculated risks based on the hour, the neighborhood, and my knowledge of it, but that's really all you can do. Story 7. Not participating as much in raising their kids. If my husband watches our son for 2 hours while I go out for dinner once a month, he's the world's greatest dad. The standard is so low, it should be offensive to men. We went out to eat once, and my husband finished up while I tended to our son. He then offered to take our son to the car while I finished. Our waitress came back and actually said to me, "You're so lucky to have a man watch your baby." We both wear wedding bands, and the kids ginger as they come, pretty obviously ours. I'm also the one who gets stuff heaped on me for anything people perceive to be wrong about our parenting. My husband is absolved. Story 8. Interrupting, especially in a business environment. When I try to talk, men will start a sentence like they were speaking in silence. Once, I interrupted a male coworker, and the room would have been less hostile if I had red-rummed a toddler instead. I stopped caring about the reception when I realized interrupting is the only way I would ever get a word in. Yep, and I've learned to say, "Hold on," and finish my thought, even though it still makes me incredibly anxious when I do it. Story 9. Dating someone much younger than them, or shorter. I'm a 5'11" male and would have no problem dating a man shorter than me. Guys don't really approach me though. My daughter is 6'1". My advice to her was, if you like someone, ask them out to coffee. It isn't going to be the easiest thing you do, but from my own experience, 6 feet tall, the guys who approached me weren't the kind I wanted to date anyway. At least making the first move, you know he's the kind of guy you want around. I would be ecstatic if a girl asked me out for coffee. Story 10. Posting a mildly controversial opinion without worrying about getting 20 replies saying, "Not all of us," or "Maybe it's just you." It's a bit hilarious comparing the responses here and the ones on the "What can women get away with" thread. Also adding on, look, it applies to both genders, you know, and that's not 100% accurate. See, there was this one time where this happened instead, so I'm calling BS. And I have personally never seen that happen before, so you're making that stuff up. Story 11. I was a stay-at-home dad for 9 years. It always irritated me that people looked at a dad spending time with his kids as a weird thing. I hear you. I'm a house husband and I love it. I've had a whole spectrum of opinions voiced to me, including, "Wow, you must be bored. Oh no, the job market is tough, eh? That's a bit gay, don't you think? You and your kid's mom split up, did you? Haha, daddy and son's day out. Must sting a bit with your wife being the breadwinner." People really can't understand. I love watching and helping my kids grow up, and I actively enjoy keeping a home. Screw me, right? Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.